This is Sensosa's Defying Common Sense. The South Korean military is collapsing. I served in the military, so I know the South Korean military currently faces a severe manpower shortage. Now, because of staff shortages, whole units are vanishing. Today, we'll address the serious situation on the ground. Let's look right now. To be direct, without major innovation, I believe the South Korean military will collapse. Let's examine its current state. In 2019, our military had 560,000 personnel. By July 2025, it's 450,000. In 6 years, 110,000 people vanished. Why is this so serious? We need at least 500,000 troops to confront the North Korean military. Some argue that North Korea's weak military means we don't need as many troops. Even with advanced technology, we still need manpower. The Chinese military could intervene any time. The minimum needed is 500,000 troops, but we're already well below that and now short by up to 50,000 soldiers. Notably, many missing troops are from the army. The army had 300,000 soldiers until 2019, but now reportedly only 200,000. That's almost 100,000 fewer soldiers. As a result, the number of divisions and higher level units has also decreased significantly due to the reduction in troops. In 2006, there were 59 divisions or higher level units, but now that number has dropped to 42. 17 units were disbanded or merged. The 28th Infantry Division, or Typhoon Division, will be disbanded in November 2025. I felt this myself in the military. Because there aren't enough people, there are many times when you have to handle work that should be divided among 4 or 5 people, all by yourself. The workload increases and physical and mental exhaustion grow, making it hard to focus on basic combat training. In the military, you're supposed to get stronger and improve your combat skills through training, but right now, we're stuck in a vicious cycle where we can't properly build the capabilities we need as soldiers because we're so busy with administrative tasks and paperwork. Especially in the case of frontline units, as the number of personnel decreases, each unit is now responsible for a much larger defense area than before. When this happens, efficiency drops and quick responses to enemy attacks or emergencies become difficult. But in reality, while these structural problems remain unresolved, those at the top criticize us for not training properly, and people outside belittle the military, questioning whether it's even a real army these days. In fact, these are structural limitations caused by a lack of personnel, but all the responsibility ends up being placed on the soldiers. In the end, both soldiers and officers are suffering from excessive workloads, yet are still expected to train as usual. This is the harsh reality of the military today, where everyone is enduring impossible conditions with no real solution. This situation will only get worse. In 2025, most enlistees are typically born in 2004 or 2005. The birth rate was 1.19 in 2004 and 1.08 in 2005. As you know, the birth rate keeps dropping and fell sharply to 0.75 in 2024. Looking at this, if anything, the situation has gotten worse, not better. In 2020 alone, the number of people undergoing military service examinations was 282,000. In 2025, it fell to 125,000, dropping by over half. And as of June 2025, the number of active duty recruits is 101,000, which is less than half of the 236,000 in 2020. This is really a big problem. The problem with junior officers is serious. As you know from your military experience, they are the backbone of the military. But this backbone is now on the verge of completely breaking. The number of officers applying for early discharge is steadily increasing. In 2021, there were 1,351. In 2022, 1,694. In 2023, 2,212. And in 2024, 2,723. The numbers are increasing every year. 2025 isn't even over yet, but already 2,869 have been recorded. Of 2,869 set for 2025 discharge, about 2,460, 86%, were non-commissioned or junior officers. The phenomenon of military personnel leaving is intensifying among junior and mid-level officers, who are responsible for commanding key troops in field units and managing unit operations. On top of that, the number of military officers on leave is also increasing significantly. In the first half of 2021, there were 1,846 officers on leave, but by the first half of 2025, that number had reached 3,884. This creates a vicious cycle, because as more officers go on leave, the workload for the remaining officers increases. They're already overworked due to staff shortages, and this only makes it worse. Urgent action is needed. The military cites 2 main reasons for officer departures and personnel shortages. The first is low birth rates. The second is how soldiers are treated and perceived. We've already covered the low birth rate issue, so let's focus on the second part now. To be honest, the way our society views soldiers is actually very cold. Some still belittle soldiers as just guard dogs, and military brat is often used thoughtlessly. Also, even just looking at my videos and the comments, it's not hard to find people saying things like the military these days isn't real military, or belittling it by saying that it's all become easy. The problem is that this kind of perception has a big impact on the morale of individual soldiers. If serving your country isn't valued by society and is belittled, why would anyone volunteer for the military? Especially policies like the military service bonus system, which aim to give at least minimal compensation to those who served, have long since disappeared. Treatment is currently poor, even compared to police or firefighters. In this environment, it's no wonder that the younger generation doesn't want to apply to become military officers, and instead naturally wants to leave the military as soon as possible and move into civilian life. In fact, military officers are not just professionals, they play an important role in supporting national security. Society's cynicism toward their sacrifices may have inevitably led to the current manpower shortage. Solving the manpower shortage isn't just about increasing numbers. Society must seriously reflect on how we treat soldiers. Soldiers also deserve respect, and only when they are guaranteed at least minimal social rewards and honor will the younger generation be able to view military service positively. In the end, changing our own perceptions is the starting point, and only when institutional improvements follow on top of that can we bring about real change. To address this issue, the military has relaxed the criteria for active duty, raising the active duty determination rate from 69.8% to 86.7%, an increase of nearly 16.9 percentage points. Honestly, as long as you have arms and legs, they're practically taking everyone into the military. Even with these measures, the manpower shortage from the low birth rate remains unsolved. The Ministry of National Defense is addressing these issues by keeping standing troop numbers stable, reducing supplementary and reserve forces, expanding female soldiers, and offering more short-term service incentives to attract new officers. They plan to expand civilian technical staff and use officers and non-commissioned officers long-term. However, if the fundamental issues of low birth rates and changing public perception are not addressed, these are only temporary measures, and the problem will not be completely solved. The large gap in service conditions between enlisted soldiers and officers greatly influenced military officers leaving. Enlisted soldiers now enjoy better meals, higher pay, and can use cell phones after duty, greatly improving conditions over the past decade. However, compared to similar professions like firefighters and police officers, military officers are relatively less compensated. As of now, in the 2025 budget, none of the proposed increases for improving conditions for military officers, such as duty allowances, moving and freight expenses, training, and meal costs, have been reflected. These issues affect morale, but aren't being addressed. Since officers are the key personnel who directly command soldiers and actually run the units, the accelerating trend of their departure is a serious issue that could lead to the collapse of the military organization. I hope that a variety of economic incentives can be prepared to encourage officers to continue their service. I hope the duty and training meal allowances are greatly increased. So far, I've discussed the 2025 situation, but what's even more shocking is the future ahead. This crisis is only starting. The next 10 to 30 years will be much more severe, possibly beyond imagination. By 2030, the number of people eligible for military service is expected to fall below 100,000. The issue isn't just having the number. The available young people for the military each year will be nearly depleted. Even if the Ministry of National Defense increases the active duty selection rate, a shrinking pool of eligible people makes maintaining the military impossible. From this point on, the disbandment of several divisions and gaps in frontline defense will inevitably become a reality. Even now, the number of troops in frontline divisions is rapidly decreasing. At this point, there could be a severe rush for positions reserved for officers, and even soldiers with weak physical conditions might be forcibly drafted into the military, leading to a situation where combat capability itself collapses. North Korea's population is declining, but forced conscription and long-term service let them keep troop levels, which could widen the troop gap with South Korea. If new military recruits fall to 7,000 to 8,000 yearly, even with long-term officers and short-term soldiers, troop numbers can't be maintained. Ultimately, major restructuring will be unavoidable, and frontline units will collapse further. Discussions about conscripting women to address troop shortages may now be seriously considered. This should be done quickly. Many military positions don't require much physical strength. Some will try to offset troop shortages with drones, artificial intelligence, and unmanned systems, but ultimately, people, not machines, must occupy and defend land. And as I mentioned earlier, to confront the North Korean military, we need a certain number of troops, so no matter how much we push for unmanned systems, there are clear limits. I don't really understand why we don't have conscription for women. What do you all think about the current situation of our military, which is falling apart? Please let us know your thoughts in the comments as well. That's all for this video, thank you.